Roll call.
Chisel. Neal.
Here.
Olson.
Here.
Luce.
Here.
Zittergruen.
Here.
Hadley. Johnson.
Here.
Is there anybody who wishes to speak to the council on something other than it's on this agenda? Hearing and seeing none. Consent agenda.
Item A, minutes of the November 21, 2022 regular meeting. B, claims. C, consider reappointment of Ron Onsager to Board of Adjustment. D, consider renewal of Class C retail alcohol license with outdoor service and catering for Hotel Winneshiek. E, approval of the dates January 3rd, 2023 and January 17, 2023 for city council meetings.
Move to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Moved by Olson, seconded by Chisel. Any discussion?
Isn't there another one the second night? The budget meeting? Is that what this is?
Those are both, we're just putting the community on notice that those 2 Mondays are holidays, so they'll both be on Tuesday.
Got it.
Okay, roll call.
Olson.
Aye.
Chisel.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Zittergruen.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carried. Conduct public hearing regarding rezoning business park from C5 Office Park Commercial to M2 Limited Industrial District. Travis?
Sure. So I'll lump the public hearing and the actionable item background together. The city received a request from Decorah Jobs, current owners of those lots specified up in the business park, currently zoned C5, commercial office park to M2 limited industrial. There are 2 active prospects that are warehousing, light manufacturing, and both interested in this particular area. When this area was zoned, they were kind of arbitrarily picked what that classification would be. This does take all the existing remaining C5 in that area and rezones it to M2, which is adjacent to the west. So not a spot rezoning, nor would it leave an island of C5. Planning and
Okay.
zoning has recommended approval.
Move for approval.
No, not quite. Not quite. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this item? Seeing hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Consider an ordinance rezoning business park from C5 Office Park Commercial to M2 Limited Industrial District. First reading.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, I have a moved by Chisel, seconded by Neal. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Chisel.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Zittergruen.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Thank you. Consider FEMA Community Rating System Letter of Intent.
The city back in 2019, when the first round of 2019 preliminary flood insurance rate maps were discussed, issued a letter of intent to enroll in the community rating system through FEMA. The premise behind this program is the city will take additional measures, and there's varying levels of participation, so that the city would engage in additional practices and additional requirements. In exchange of participation, all of our residents would then see lower premiums on their federal flood insurance. So DNR has reached back out to us, asked if we are still interested. In speaking with Jeremy, we believe it's something that we can handle participation. And so DNR would like a new letter of intent, just restating that 2019 interest.
I'll make a motion to support the rewriting of a letter to FEMA regarding our letter of intent.
Motion made by Neal, seconded by Luce. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Neal.
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Zittergruen,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Chisel.
Consider granting of variances for Kratz subdivision. Want a
All right.
background on that?
Yes, so at one of last month's council meetings, the Kratz subdivision was up for council consideration. If you remember, this is within the 2-mile buffer of the city limits. City code does state that any variances, or and variance is probably not the best term to use here, because in this instance, any variation, modification, or waiver of the subdivision requirements is actually granted by council and not Board of Adjustment. And so this is back in front of council consideration for variances, and the developer is requesting variances from all the previously noted deficiencies, including, I'll read through several of them here. Lot 1, they did make this change. Lot 1 showed an unplatted strip or private street. They have made that change, remove that. And then proposed streets are noted as private but not meeting city code. Include street width approximately 14 feet, not accommodating two-way traffic. Cul-de-sacs longer than 1,000 feet in length. City code allows for 600 feet. No street names are listed in the plat. Proposed private street names or streets are shown as crushed rock. We would require hard surface. No curb and gutter. No street lights are shown on the plat. No street signs are shown on the plat. No names indicated again. There are inconsistencies with building setback lines. Again, no sidebacks were shown. City code requires 5 feet wide sidewalks in all subdivisions, and no practices indicated for handling of stormwater. So again, it has been requested that the city council provide a variance to not require these as part of that 2-mile buffer, as our code does apply, and the county is holding our code as the rule for that area.
Is there any changes made from the discussion that we'd had at the last meeting?
That Lot 1 previously had an unplatted strip in there. They have removed that as part of the next plat.
Maybe this is a question more for John, or actually Travis. Could you clarify what you mean when you say the county's holding them to the city code? Could the county not hold them to the city code if they wanted to, or is this controlled by state law?
State law allows for it and does say they should.
But they could, if they wanted to, just ignore this city code, or I'm curious what's at work here. I don't guess I'm missing the background. Maybe
I'm going to make and I don't want to sound disrespectful, but Board of Adjustment has very specific rules as well as when they should provide variances. In my entire career, I've seen maybe 1-2 instances that truly should be granted a variance. So, pointing out the similarities there.
And state law does say, this is in the Iowa code, that when a city is exercise or has in its city code that it will exercise authority over its 2-mile area for subdivision purposes, the county and the city should apply the city standard. And I believe, that's in the state code, and I believe the Winnebago County zoning ordinance also has that same language. Whether they had it or not, they should, but it is in there, so I think that's why they're pushing it back here.
Council comments? Questions?
May I speak?
Sure.
Tate Kurt, I'm working with Kratz on the development of this. So basically, the plat that you guys have in front of you is according to the county code. It meets county code. The county engineer approved it. The only request he had was the verification of that strip. And basically, there was a temporary gravel road down there when they did the survey, and the surveyor said because it's there, they have to put it there. It is not going to be a road or anything like that. That's why they noted it. That was the only change they asked for. So basically, yes, we understand that this is, you know, within the 2 mile buffer, so that's why this is kind of a funny spot. Basically, we're asking to do the same thing that the Dalen subdivision did, which is in the city limits. It's going to be private streets. There's going to be no, you know, public streets or anything like that. It's all going to be paid for and maintained by the private people and stuff that way. So I guess it's one of those ones where if you guys want to impose the city's will on all the other developments outside the 2 mile, that's fine. I guess I would just say, hey, make it public and make it be known that any developers going forward, this is a new thing. Because if you look at all the other rural subdivisions outside the city limits, none of them have had to apply to the city code and stuff like that. So I guess that's my ask of you guys, is to say, hey, is this the new standard you're going to hold everybody to? So basically, the county just asked for a variance from you guys because you're the ones that made this extra layer of ordinance be adjusted to it.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, quick. Okay.
No, if you want to ask Jeremy something,
Well-
otherwise I'm going to.
Well, I don't know if Jeremy's the right person to answer, or ask this question, but I think you probably would be. Is this similar to something that happened up there on Stapleton Drive where they built that up there and it's not wide enough for a public street, so they have to maintain that themselves? Is that similar?
It's similar in the sense that it's a private street. This street in Stapleton is paved and it's wider, but yeah, as was stated, it's similar in the sense that the ask there was to keep it private, and the city will not do any maintenance. It's a
Right.
responsibility of the homeowners association to maintain that in perpetuity, because that one does not meet city standards either.
Correct. Okay.
Can I ask oh, you were going to say something, Emily, go ahead.
Go ahead, you can ask your question.
If this fails for lack of being moved and seconded, there's different rules, right? It can't come back up for a year. Is that, or am I thinking of something else? I just want to make sure procedurally I understand what we're doing here.
Yeah, if
If it's
brought
moved and
up-
seconded and someone votes against it and wants to reconsider it, they could do that. Is that right?
the party on the prevailing side, there would have to be a motion from that individual for this meeting, the next meeting, or the meeting after that. Otherwise, it has to wait a year, yes.
Okay.
I have one other thing to say. Sorry. I guess we also understand that they do not want to be annexed or come into the city. And if it ever did want to come into the city, yes, they understand they would have to change things to make the city code. So, I mean, it's one of those, we understand if you want to say, yes, we'll grant you the variance. However, if you ever want to come into the city, we understand that, yes, we would have to meet the code if they wanted to come into the city, but they have no plans for doing that just because of, bringing infrastructure and everything else out there and stuff like that, so.
So this is being discussed because it's within the 2 mile? So the
Correct.
comment about the other ones that are outside is superfluous to this discussion?
The ones I believe brought up with Daly and Stapleton are both within city limits.
No, I think Mr. Current said,
Like
They
Woodland
weren't-
Acres, Downey Dish, all them.
Oh, those.
Outside of city limits, then annexed, and then didn't meet city code, and we run into these problems, which is why I'm not in favor of this.
They're still county. They went through the same process.
Right.
They've never been
So,
annexed.
again, I mean, I think, and I guess I'm really excited that there is this 2 mile buffer and that the county wants to uphold sort of city ordinance within that space. That feels really good to me, and I think we have ordinances for reasons. I think it's fine to say right now when you're looking at a bill, you don't want to put the infrastructure in needed to be required to meet city ordinances, but that seems short-sighted in the long run in terms of annexation of what probably will become city area in the future.
I can appreciate that. I can also appreciate, that there are probably people who hear us talking about how important more housing is, and here we are throwing up barriers to housing on land that likely isn't going to be annexed into the city. And so I wanted to learn more, and I feel like I've learned some. I think there's reasons for the 2 mile. You might call it a green belt, or I think there's reasons for that, just in addition to simply ensuring that in case someone's someday annexed they are built to city code. I mean, I feel as if it also gives cities some, control over the development patterns and styles of people who, while they're not technically residents of cities, behave, it's kind of, they're benefiting from many of the city services and goods that their tax dollars aren't supporting. So I can appreciate that argument, I guess, as well, and that's why I'm, inclined to let this die.
Any comments from the other council, please? Anything else? So when you mean let it die, you're not going to do anything with it.
Yeah, I don't think there's a motion on the table. So
Okay, no, there isn't. No, there isn't. I'm just checking.
What is the action requested?
So, as John would usually note, and just confirm for me here, always recommend a motion in the affirmative, regardless of whether you want the motion to pass or not. So that way, as the motion fails, then it truly dies, as opposed to it just never got considered.
Or if there's no motion
So
that's
you mean
brought forth.
a person could make a motion but then vote no?
Correct.
So
If we just don't make a motion on it?
then it's,
Can we just?
Then council just hasn't taken action on it, so it hasn't failed.
so if you want us to make a motion and then vote no, if that is our inclination, as opposed to making it just sit here.
In practically every scenario, yes.
Okay.
I'll move it.
I mean,
I'll second it.
Okay,
so what's the motion?
and the motion,
Is to grant the variance for the Kratz subdivision.
okay, by Zeta Gruen, seconded by Neil.
So this is a motion in the positive, so if we don't want it to happen, we vote no.
Correct.
Any other further discussion? Roll call?
Zittergruen,
No.
Neal,
No.
Johnson,
Aye.
Chisel,
Aye.
Olson,
No.
Luce.
No.
Motion fails. Consider resolution fiscal year 2024 airport capital improvement plan.
Okay, so the city council sees this every year. This is a 5-year, and then there are additional years 6 through 20 on the tail end of this document. But the importance behind the ACIP is if a project is not listed in the ACIP, FAA and DOT will not supply grant funding towards it. So the ACIP, by having the project in there, does not obligate the city to move forward with any said project listed. But again, if a project is not listed in there, we cannot pursue federal and state grant funding.
Luce would move approval of the ACIP.
Neil, second.
Motion made by Luce, seconded by Neil for approval of the ACIP. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Luce,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Zittergruen,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Chisel,
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Motion carries. Consider resolution to approve McClure Task Order Number 2.
Okay, so do want to note Dave Jones with McClure Engineering serves as the airport engineer, is also present and should be available to ask and answer any questions that the council may have. Task order number 2, which would have the contingency of FAA approval, because there is an independent fee estimate that needs to be done and has been done. Just need FAA concurrence that the IFE is in line with McClure Engineering's cost proposal, which on the surface and according to me looks well within 10%. Just waiting for their blessing. So task order number 2 would be all engineering for pre-bid, design, up to bid, basically get us up to construction. And the proposed contract amounts for $240,000 or $240,800 with $230,600 eligible for 90% reimbursement from the FAA and $10,200 applied towards the Gavi grant previously awarded. So this is again for the proposed terminal project and maintenance hangar that we did include in this year's budget for the full local match. What we're looking at, though, is more than likely spread over possibly even 3 fiscal years from the city, if not at least 2.
Lewis would move to approve the McClure Task Order 2.
Neil, second.
Motion made by Luz, seconded by Neil. Any further discussion?
Just my math is we're authorizing $23,000 that we've already budgeted to, I mean, that's kind of the net effect on the city's budget.
Net effect, it will be full amount cash out and then reimbursement back.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
No other questions for Dave? He drove a long way.
How was the weather?
Okay. Roll call?
Luce. Aye. Neal.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Chisel. Olson.
Aye.
Sittergruen.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Just as a side note, I will point out the Airport Commission will be talking with the county supervisors on Monday, January 16th to also discuss county's participation in funding in this program.
I was happy to see that because we have not done that previously, correct?
It's been quite some time.
Okay. There are things that go on there that affect everybody in the county as well. So. Okay, consider resolution to declare necessity and establish an urban renewal area pursuant to section 403.4 of the Code of Iowa and approve urban renewal plan and project for the 2022 Bluffside Urban Renewal Area and rescind resolution 3256.
So this conversation will be pretty light, slight oops on this. We've been doing a bunch of urban renewal areas, revitalization areas, and discussions and everything. My background notes don't exactly match this title because it's the wrong title. This was supposed to be the 2014 housing, and did receive a request from 2 council members to put this back on the agenda. Our current council-approved plan that is set to change those schedules goes into effect February 1, and did have council members ask that a new amended path be brought forward to council that would push it back to April 1. So we do still have some time. John, I don't know if you want to elaborate on how limited their discussion can be, since the agenda item isn't accurate.
It can be about ministerial topics, such as when to reschedule this for a vote, but it can't be a substantive discussion that borders on deliberations and your opinions about the value of this.
So this will be coming back like to the next meeting?
So see you January 3rd with it.
Okay.
That's fine. That's
So
right.
do we need to make them?
Nope.
Okay. Consider approval of updated MOU with Alliant Energy.
Okay, so the Alliance, if council remembers, the city and Alliance not entered into, because again, this is a non-binding MOU, which is simply meant to make sure both parties understand what we're working towards. And the original industrial lane MOU said that the city would pursue quiet title to the underlying land for industrial lane, and in exchange, Alliant would provide the driveway to the north along the highway back to the bicycle trail trailhead. And during the legwork of this, actual errors were identified of the previous property owner. They are like the Catholic Church and Archdiocese of Dubuque, and but anyway, heirs have been identified. With that, Alliant will actually pursue quiet title to the land and then compensate the heirs based on that action. And now the requested path on the city side is to pursue possible vacation of the easement that currently sits over top of Industrial Lane. Because while we don't have, it's not right of way and we don't have land rights to it, we do have an easement over top of it.
Wouldn't it be prudent to not vacate the easement until we knew that Alliant actually had ownership of that land?
Correct, yes. And,
Okay.
And the MOU, again, it's meant to outline that this is the path we are all heading. And yes, as part of the driveway entrance to the north, Alliant would provide not just a driveway easement, but also the relocating utilities. That's still part of the existing MOU and would be maintained. They'll provide easement for that as well.
So everything that was previously discussed in reference to this is still going to be in place, or we would still keep it in place?
Correct. The where it becomes amended is Alliance going to pursue quiet title,
Right.
and we're simply going to pursue vacation of the easement.
Right.
Anything else you want to add, John?
No, just to follow up on Emily's question, though, this process takes, to vacate the easement and to convey it, it takes over 60 days. So Alliant is trying to do kind of two processes. Well, they want the city to pursue the vacation and conveyance of the easement while they're pursuing getting title to the land underneath. And so we estimate that, there's a resolution coming up to set a public hearing date for March 20th. That resolution, you'll see, it's a hybrid for two different processes. There's the process to vacate, which the city will be sending notice to people in the prior chain of title and that have title to the adjoining land, which is basically Alliant, and then there's we call it the Kornmeyer property and the Ronan property. And city would, after it releases its easement, it actually then also conveys that easement to Alliant. So it's not just a vacation. It's a vacation and a disposal or a sale or conveyance. So two back-to-back processes we're trying to get going all at one time.
Why does Alliant need, if Alliant gets the land, why do they need the easement?
Because otherwise they have an easement that goes through their new building.
So they want us to vacate it, not transfer the easement to them.
Right, and
That's why it's confusing.
Yes, it is confusing. There's a Chapter 306 process, and that is a process that you have to go to dispose of a former highway. You have to offer it to the prior title holder, which this goes back 70 years, so those people are gone. And the people in the chain of title and the owners of the adjacent land. And then you can offer to sell it. The strange thing is here, who wants an easement that you don't get the underlying land? Only Alliant. But that's the process. And there's been an appraisal done, actually, of the difference in values of the easement and the underlying land. And Alliant's paying for that, reimbursing it under the prior MOU and this MOU. This MOU, as Travis said, the main difference is before we thought the city of Decorah had to pursue a quiet title action for the underlying land. But then when we were able to identify who those heirs are, talking it through with Alliance attorneys, it made more sense that Alliant will have a better cause of action for that quiet title action. But we still have to take care of the easement on top of the land.
Okay. Okay, so we're looking for approval.
According to your comment, then it's not contingent upon, it's two-part single action.
Right, so if,
There will be another actionable item at that March meeting after the hearing.
correct. This just, well, you have the MOU that you'll approve, and we can talk about the resolution next, but MOU basically is trying to get the city and Alliant and keep the city council updated and make sure Alliant still has your approval to go forward with that, and that Alliant reimburses the city for any cost the city has with this.
I'd move for approval of the updated MOU with Alliant Energy.
Second.
Motion made by Chisel, seconded by Steve Zittergruen. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Chisel.
Aye.
Zittergruen.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carried. Consider resolution proposing conveyance release of a right-of-way easement and setting public hearing date. Do you have, were we setting, what was the, what was the
That, the
That's
previous item was
yeah.
just the MOU.
Yeah.
This would be the formal action to set the public
public
hearing
hearing?
and provide notice.
For March 20th, right?
Okay. No,
It's
Think
March
it would-
second meeting in March.
Yeah,
right?
March 20th,
okay.
that's what I had.
I propose setting the right-of-way easement and setting the public hearing for March 20th,
Second?
2023.
Second?
Motion made by Neal, seconded by Olson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call?
Neal.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Zittergruen.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Chisel.
Motion carried. New goals considered for 2023. I believe that's a kind of a continuation of the discussion we had at the last meeting. Any other information you want to give, Travis?
Correct. So after council went through and we recapped the 2022-23 goals set a little over a year ago, and noted that for staff to help prepare the preliminary budget for workshop discussions, we wanted to discuss new goals that the council may have. We already discussed some shifting priorities, moving up infrastructure maintenance from a medium priority goal to a high priority goal, as well as municipal electric utility, and having council take action on that, moving up from medium priority to high priority. So again, the main intent of this discussion is to help staff prepare preliminary draft numbers for budget work sessions.
Can you verify, I think in our conversations, the city space needs, does that also include the North Alley project with the school?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other point of discussion?
I wanted to talk about wayfinding, which has been a sort of thing that we've been working on for quite some time, and I feel as if it's time to pull the trigger on it in the upcoming year. So I want that to be a high priority for something we accomplish, a comprehensive and citywide integrated wayfinding system that makes our city more accessible and work better for residents and non-residents. Are there any other council members who think that that's worth?
No problem with that
prioritizing?
whatsoever.
No, that's great.
I agree.
I think that'd be a great high priority so that hopefully staff can check it off next month. We actually do have one proposal on initiating that, with working on a second right now. So that's good to hear that
Good.
that's a good council priority. We've heard it a couple times. Putting it on here helps.
I'm feeling incredibly effective right now. Like it's
Perfect.
the most responsive I've ever experienced staff. That's wonderful.
Make a star there for the night.
How can we put the downtown assessment into our priorities to try and get community leaders and city moving on, taking active steps to accomplish, at least discussing about it formally to see a meeting of the minds or where the thoughts are about it.
And we did have a little light discussion on at the last meeting where I do have that noted under shared goals and coordination under the medium priority, downtown assessment collaboration and especially on completing projects within the North Alley. Now on the how we do that, I think has to be honestly just a continued effort to have the various groups together. If we all act independently, the city pursues its path, school pursues its path. We can't operate that way and achieve a lot of these goals.
So to me, that's saying it's more than a medium priority goal, is what I'm saying. It should be up higher in terms of getting those factors together and moving as a community on things.
I think that was my question, actually, about city space needs. I think what I was trying to allude to is when we were talking about city space needs, I think we were trying to incorporate adding that into that section, right? I mean, that is the North Alley, that is the coordination of projects.
Yep. I'm sorry, I got hung up on the downtown assessment portion that Steve brought up. We had that specifically under shared goals and coordination. Honestly, the coordination aspect, it covers any number of these projects, honestly, or any number of these goals. I mean, housing, we're not going to solve the housing problem by ourselves. That's going to take a coordinated effort with multiple organizations.
Yeah, I'll just, I see that as a priority too, and that community-wide comprehensive coordination, obviously a critical part of it. So thanks to Steve for bringing that up. I know that we've said let's get through the North Alley thing first, but there's a lot of good pieces in that assessment that aren't located in the study area of the North Alley that, it might be worth digging some of those back up too.
So are you recommending, Steve, we move that up to high priority?
Very much.
I agree. I'd like to
I think so,
I'd like
too.
to get systematic about, the people came to town, experts, they gave us a lot of recommendations. I think it's time to consider them in concert with all the other community organizations that have a stake, so.
Yep, no, I agree. I think that should always be a high priority.
I think it is. So here's what I'm confused about. This is where shared goals and coordination to me is how we do work, not necessarily an actual goal.
Right.
Saying that the goal is,
Right.
downtown investment, downtown school, those to me are the actual goals of what we're trying to achieve. Shared goals and coordination is essentially how we do work, not to me a goal. I mean, it's a goal that we work that way, but it's not finite enough.
It should be an ongoing thing
Yeah,
that we
like
strive
how
to
would
do.
you ever-
Strive to do
yeah.
all the time, so to speak.
That makes sense?
I mean, I hear you, Emily, but on the other hand, you could also say the same about communication. And yet we said communication's a goal. We didn't necessarily spell it out. And as a result, we got some really decent proposals about how we could enhance our city communication with specific actionable items. And so I guess what I'm saying is that if staff hears from us that a goal for us is to increase the work with our interdependent private and public agencies, maybe they respond with discrete achievables, deliverables that make that happen better. I know the mayor's made some groundwork on that with her, leaders conversations. I know that there's lots of other things happening officially and sort of just interpersonally. But I sure would love to not wait a year and a half the next time we ask all the various community organizations to weigh in on a plan, to get a response. And so maybe we could do a better job of that going forward. Maybe that could be a goal. That's the flip side, I guess. I'm not sure I even disagree with you.
I think we're all kind of in agreement on that.
And the fact of moving this up to the high priority. Any other changes?
My last one is just a tentative, curious what the council thinks and what staff thinks, which is I was really grateful for the staff's work in identifying staffing efficiencies as part of the transition that we recently experienced in the city hall. And And I guess I'm wondering, would it be wise for the city to have a proactive place and plan in case further opportunities arise? You know, it's sort of identifying, here's a way that these departments could be strengthened by sharing a staff person, or here's, you know, I'm not even saying like, let's change our staffing arrangements, but is there a way to plan for that so we don't have to be reactive? Does that question make sense, Travis? Maybe it's not one you want to answer right now.
I think I know what you're getting at. Looking at almost possibilities through attrition that just have identified different areas that maybe, am I close to what you're talking about?
Yeah,
like
I mean,
identify maybe some areas that, you know, Carrie and I do very similar jobs. Maybe you should only do one of us. Terrible idea, by the way. Don't do that.
Hey, wait a minute. Don't do
Carrie
that.
could maybe do mine, but I can't. No.
Carrie's giving me an eye roll over there.
But is that what you're getting at, Stephen?
yeah, and
Maybe
I mean, obviously last time we had a little bit of time because we could contract some services and like it gave us flexibility on the hiring plan, and then you could meet with the staff, you know, people involved in the decision making and come to us with a plan. A lot of times when we experience a vacancy through retirement or any other reason, someone taking a different job, we sort of instinctively just rehire the position without thinking, does this create an opportunity to better align our staffing deployment with the city's ever-changing needs?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, Kirk, you mentioned in the past that at one point there was sort of a, you know, no new hires until we discuss it every time, but it seems like we've gotten away from that in the past year or two. So I'm just wondering if maybe being more proactive and having a plan to strive towards is the way to do this instead of just like responding to vacancy after vacancy with the same.
I wondered if the conversation last meeting about, Ross brought up about looking at things from a public works perspective, if that allows more of a integration of thinking about things as opposed to individual departments. And if they bump into each other and, oh, I'm going to lose a guy, you know, actually having it more core. What I heard Ross say was that public works department or public works being directed might be a way for that integration of those opportunities.
And we
Did you
don't,
hear that?
I think, I know the mayor is going to love this comment. Obviously, this is not the right meeting for us to talk about like ideal staffing arrangements to one day like end up with, but I'm just wondering, would the staff think there was any value in hiring a staffing survey or, you know, doing a assessment of our staffing, or like kind of ending up with a sort of 20-year vision or 10-year vision for what things might look like? Is that valuable? We have a good plan now for staff compensation and hopefully retaining, you know, our great staff, but are there unrealized deficiencies like the one we recently realized that we could target? Or do you think it's just best to do that piece by piece?
I'll answer the first question about the study. I've been on the board side of a landfill board that I sat on that did that exact thing. Brought in a consultant to look at the structure of the organization and how you want to see that play out. To be honest, it's a little bit more, political is not the right term, but it's not necessarily based on the performances of the job. It's more a top-down look at the organization on, okay, how do you want your city to function? Doesn't necessarily look at the bottom up on the efficiency side. If you're understanding, am I clear on that? So
I hope I've been clear that I'm merely like engaging in like, would it be good for our city to have a proactive plan instead of reacting to vacancies as they naturally happen?
Yeah, and I'm just trying to get at on the bringing in a consultant side. They're not going to be looking necessarily at where those efficiencies
Gotcha.
can be made.
Okay.
And I do think that's where we can best do that internally. And
Good. Well, maybe
Well,
this can just be maybe this can just be left at the level of like a soft encouragement that as our leadership, you continue to, you know, be ready to advise us if there's ways in which we could make this city run more effectively, especially for the same price or cheaper, so.
I like the soft encouragement part.
I actually thought where you were going with this, which again, I was going to chime in about it. That doesn't sound like a goal, but is more of sort of a, like the handbook process of when there is someone who retires, like then we look at efficiencies and, do we institutionalize again the practice of like what you're already doing? Do we need to write down that somewhere that we should keep doing? That's where I thought you were going.
Well, he's now heard it from several of us, and hopefully that's enough.
Okay, anything else? All right, go on with city manager report.
Do want to point out, more so as a reminder, the FEMA 2019 firm, we're in the appeal period. Again, an appeal can't be, I've lived here 50 years and I've never once had water. I shouldn't be in the floodplain. It has to be a statistical analysis, a hard math, and we've heard from FEMA that they better be wrong if it comes as an appeal that's actually going to get through, to be honest. Like, FEMA, there's no, trying to think how they put it. Long story short, FEMA's not looking to hear many appeals in this window. Like, FEMA better be really off for them to consider an appeal.
They don't want anecdotal evidence. They want elevations.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, you're better off letting the map go and be wrong and then doing a LOMA.
Doing a what?
Letter of map amendment, so that let the map go and become the map, and then have a surveyor or an engineering firm shoot your elevations with your finished floor elevation and show it's above base flood elevation and submit a letter of map amendment. That is an easier path than your appeal.
Thank you.
Are the maps being published again?
Like, again, locally,
Yeah.
they were published in November twice, or the notices, excuse me, were published in November twice. We've got them on our website, and links directly to FEMA's mapping system so that you can see where you would sit as well.
Just with that announcement, I was like, oh, a map would be helpful for people that way.
And I've received one phone call since the last time I pointed this out. It was from a county resident. So if you're a county resident, that's not me, that's Tony Phillips, and I believe they are working on, they're not part of, they have not adopted any flood maps yet, and they're working on it. So I have that, and just want to report back, planning and zoning did discuss at their last meeting residential bulk regulations, did come to general consensus on a number of possible changes that I'll be incorporating into a potential ordinance, get back to them. They have talked about that'll be a starting point. They may set a public hearing at that at that P&Z meeting. Otherwise, they'll use that as their jumping off point for discussions.
Thank you for taking that to him so promptly. Carrie.
I just wanted to reiterate, I sent out an email with the budget work sessions. We are looking at January 9th and January 10th. I believe January 9th, Monday, we were talking 7 o'clock. We'd be looking at the water and wastewater. And then Tuesday, it'll start at 5, and that'll be the general fund.
And I'll just piggyback on that by doing the water and sewer on Monday. Those are dedicated funding sources with the water revenues, sewer revenues. So when we get to Tuesday and we continue our conversations, which include general fund allocations, typically water and sewer are not going to come up in that summary discussion of, we need to lower our levy somehow. What are we going to look at? Water and sewer, not where we look.
Okay.
And there's room if Jeremy wants to do streets on Monday as well.
Where do we have to start at 7 after P&Z? Is that the?
Yeah, it just Yeah, it's P and Z on the 9th, right? Yeah.
And 10 o'clock's our hard stop.
It'd be a budget work session, which I don't know, does it have the same rules apply? Okay. So yeah, 10 would be our hard stop. We could post it for, honestly, we could post for 6, and just whenever P and Z is done, everyone be ready to go.
Let's do that. Are you guys good with that?
Yeah, because otherwise, if they get done early, then we're waiting.
Yeah,
for-
then you're waiting.
I have a pre-scheduled meeting at 7 o'clock that night.
So even as it is now, you can't be here. Yeah, 6 then, well, but you could be here and then go and then,
And we could put Jeremy first, because he's probably going to be here for P and Z anyway, because we got 2 site plans. Yeah. So we could put street first, and then, with Mike and Todd, we could send you guys a message that, all right, we're getting started, and then that would give you time. That way you wouldn't have to come early and wait for P and Z to wrap up and get the meeting started.
So the first meeting would be streets, water, and sewer.
what time does P and Z
And
start?
then the second one,
5:30, right? Yeah.
and then the next day would be the general.
They do have 2 site plans, and again, if they're gonna have the housing, residential bulk regulation discussion, I don't think they're gonna get done by 6. 6:30 would be a push.
No, I was gonna say, sometimes we've done it before, stopped, come back, but we can.
I'll post for 6:30, and I think that's more realistic than 6. I do think 7's probably closer to the true start time, but we could post 6:30.
Okay. Very good. Anything else, Carrie? Anything over? I want to make a comment. I'm in Rotary, and Todd did a presentation. He'll just be all embarrassed and red-faced. Did a presentation at Rotary that was excellent, and I know that he did get some assistance from Kristen, maybe? But I appreciated the presentation that you did. It was well received. There were good comments. It was extremely informative. Anything else from that table? Okay. Now we'll go around, and Randy, I have a listing of the different assignments you have. It's hotel, motel. Do you have any information when that might be a meeting? Or you haven't met, I take
We
it?
haven't met in a while.
Okay,
Been a while, yeah.
okay, I'm
And I
just
was,
checking.
Unfortunately, I missed last Friday's chamber meeting, but
Okay.
it was basically welcome to the 2 new members that we have coming on, and
Okay.
thanking the 2 that are leaving.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else?
Last week of holiday lights, with the exception of Thursday and Friday this week, I believe they've already announced closures because of the extreme weather.
Okay,
Everybody have a safe travel and a very Merry Christmas. We'll see you all next year.
okay. Emily?
I
Assistant.
have some questions, just in follow-up, can I ask those things? One, I was just curious about, one, I was really appreciative of how many people came to the North Alley discussion. Lots of people were here looking at the boards, and I didn't know if there was gonna be an official timeline posted. That was of what's next.
Yeah, I don't have one back from Rose. Honestly, I haven't even been able to touch base with her and get on the feedback on this meeting. I had airport commission last week on Wednesday as well afterwards, so I even had to duck out early.
Okay. And then also then just touching back around this idea of the downtown historic district and coming up with a rezone there. Will that come back to us in January?
I would like some feedback from you guys on what you would like to see in that, so that otherwise I would be moving forward kind of in the blind.
Okay,
So please send me feedback. I haven't received
Where's-
any
which
comments
area
yet
is
on
that?
that.
that's what we discussed when we did the C3 ordinance.
Okay,
And it was the idea that we would then pull off the historic portion of downtown, create a
Okay.
new zone there that we could then further
okay,
think about the designation of that zoning.
okay.
sustainability meeting on Wednesday. I don't think I can go to it, but they are talking about some new energy programs. And I didn't know if there's a council member that wanted to attend sustainability on Wednesday. I think
hope
Ross
to
is
get
in
there.
England, but if someone wanted to attend 5:45, you can do it by Zoom. I won't be able to make it. Sustainability has been working on some budget ideas that they'll submit to our budget meetings in January. And obviously the solar panel stuff. Jeremy, any announcements on any of the grants we've applied for? Okay, no announcements on grants.
Okay.
And otherwise, everyone have a really happy and safe holiday to our streets guys and gals. Do you have gals in the street? Anyhow, bless you for what might be coming Thursday. And then a shout out to the library. I think I've heard more comments in the last 3 weeks about the library, and one of my favorites was, gosh, it's almost worth having kids again just to be able to go to the library program. So,
Thanks,
thank you,
Emily.
everybody. Have a happy holiday season.
Kirsten.
Let's see. Friday night, I took an opportunity to do a ride-along with the Decorah Police Department. It was exceedingly interesting for me, having worked in law enforcement I'll be dating myself, but some 30 years ago, and to see how much things have changed. I got to see the dispatchers at work. They now have 6 screens that they work from. Back in the day, we only had 1 screen that they operated off of. The officers now have computers in their cars where they can locate all the other law enforcement vehicles that are in the area at the time. They can get updated information quite quickly. And I want to point out things that haven't changed is that our law enforcement people out there on a nightly basis deal with things that we have no idea that they deal with in this community. And it makes all of us feel like we are living in a small, quiet, peaceful community. And that's a wonderful thing, but it's due to the fact that these people are out there every day doing what we need them to do to make sure that exists. So thank you to the police officers in this city for what they do. And I would encourage you, all my fellow council people to get out there and seize the same opportunity to ride with these guys and see what they're actually up to, and the ladies that do this stuff, because it's a great service they provide for us. Thanks.
Hey, do you have any, has the Upper Iowa Watershed Board met?
Upper Iowa River Watershed Management Authority, we met last week. The funding that we got, or they'd gotten previously over the last 2 or 3 years, they've used that $4.7 million to do a bunch of wonderful projects along the Upper Iowa River. They've currently used all that funding, so it was the final kind of synopsis of what they'd gotten accomplished. And we're just going to kind of keep it open and available in case some other opportunities for more funding come available to us, and we can be ready to jump on it if that happens.
Very good. Okay. Steve Luce,
Hi, Mayor.
have you been to a SMID meeting lately?
There have not been any SMID meetings for the
Okay.
last 2 months,
Okay.
and they won't be until they have a bill they need to pay and approve,
Okay.
use some of their funds for. So I think they've got, as I recall, some 45,000 in their coffers from their self-taxing that they do for the area. Would like to encourage everyone to, during this time of light, there are a lot of people who are hurting and who are depressed, who are missing past holidays with loved ones who are no longer around. So I encourage us all to give more than just to our family, give to a lot of the nonprofits in our community that do so much substantially great work, both in feeding people and caring for people. So think how those organizations could be helped a lot by contributions as well. So consider the spirit of giving to widen our giving to more. Other than that, Merry Christmas to all. It's all good night.
Steve Zittergren, I know you went to Decorah Jobs the other day.
I did go to Decorah Jobs the other day. I am excited about some of the prospects that led to the request for rezoning tonight, although I don't know much about them. It's just that there are prospects out there for businesses that want to come to town, and so much of what staff and this city does, and the businesses and the leaders in this city do to make this town a desirable place to come and start a business, and a desirable place to come and work and live and raise a family. You see it paying dividends at those meetings in terms of the interested contacts that we receive. So it makes me proud to be part of this city. Thanks to Steve for what he said about if you have room in your budget and your heart, considering a donation to one of the many great nonprofits in this city. I work with one of them, and I know we count on about like the holiday giving season for almost a quarter of our yearly budget. And so don't underestimate the difference that your impact can make to human services or any IACC or any of the other people who are serving the neighbors right in this community. So thanks for that note, Steve. I've got two more quick ones. The first is that tomorrow night at 6 o'clock there is a MEU task force meeting. What I know the chair hopes is the last meeting where they can vote on a recommendation. There's been this narrative that the meeting has been changed or moved around, and the insinuation that that's because of sort of sleight of hand that is being rescheduled on a random Tuesday. And I just want to say here in public that that's just weird and inaccurate and irresponsible to say. I think the assumption at the end of the meeting when they weren't able to finish their work was that they would have to meet in January because we were hard up against the holidays. But this meeting was only ever scheduled for tomorrow night because it turns out there was a time that everyone could get together and still abide by Iowa's open meetings laws and posting requirements. So I'm excited for them that they can finish their work before the end of the year because I know that that's been a goal for quite a long time. And I'm frustrated that there are those in our community who would insinuate that public servants who are volunteering their time are trying to do something in an underhanded way. And my last comment is it was just a little bit over a year ago that we had that 30-ish hour power outage, and so many of our city's pieces of infrastructure were stressed and strained, and so many of you all worked really hard to keep things together with our water supply and our pumping stations. And I'm incredibly proud in the last year how we've made it so that if, God forbid, we face another extended power outage this weekend, I know that we've done a lot to harden our system and to apply for grants. And I know that there's been a lot of hours of tireless work, planning, preparing, applying for grants, installing things. And I'm glad that that we've taken those leadership steps and made those investments. So thank you to staff for that leadership. And I'm proud of what we've done together as leaders.
Good.
Just a little bit more about Decorah jobs. There was an update on the Sunflower Child Care Center, and as I recall, the walls will be delivered, the concrete walls will be delivered sometime late in the spring and probably go up in June. Was that what you recall? We also had our annual meeting, and we elected officers going forward. Harlan Satram is the past president now, and Rick Burris, I believe, is the president, and Brian Hinker is the VP going forward.
Thanks. And you went to Winnebago County Development. Can you get an update on that?
Yeah, so Winnebago County Development Tourism followed immediately Decorah Jobs, so thankfully I didn't have to change rooms, went from one meeting to the next. But again, Winnebago County Development Tourism, that's one of those partners where you hear Winnebago County Development, but Decorah proper is within Winnebago County. So we need to work with those external partners. Again, their focus is a little bit, Decorah Jobs is very much the business park and Decorah proper, but their executive director is also one and the same. So of course those projects are going to overlap a bit, but good meeting. Again, one of the items of note, we talk about EV chargers here in Decorah and the installation we did in North Alley. They are looking at, I believe it was 7 different locations within the county, 2 in Kalmar. I think Austin may have said no, but there were like 7 different locations within Winnebago County that they're pursuing putting in EV charging stations. So they do quite a bit of work as well.
Thank you. I know that today the dispatchers took a road trip and went to the La Crosse weather station center that's located in La Crosse. I think they had it planned to go, not just that they may be having better connections by the end of the week with them, but I appreciated the fact that I think Sean and Rhonda had set that up for them to be able to go and see what it's like. They communicate with them quite a bit, and hopefully they can get information too. So, okay, anything else? Please stay healthy and have a good holiday.